They've done it. SpaceX just installed a massive launch mount with absolute precision, using two giant cranes working in perfect harmony. While this engineering marvel took shape, Ship 35 roared to life, all six Raptor engines blazing for a full minute. The most exciting part? Booster 14 now stands ready at the pad, with Flight 9 possibly launching in just 2 weeks. This isn't just progress, it's a space revolution happening before our eyes. Stay with us to witness every thrilling detail of SpaceX's next giant leap. Let's dive right in. What you're witnessing at Starbase isn't just construction, it's a carefully orchestrated ballet of engineering. This week marked a critical turning point as SpaceX races to prepare for Starship's next orbital attempt. But why is Flight 9 so important? Because after Flight 8's partial success, the entire future of SpaceX's Mars ambitions depends on proving Starship can be rapidly reusable. The first sign that something big was happening came early Friday morning. Test Tank 17, a prototype for the Block 3 Super Heavy booster, rolled out of Star Factory. This wasn't just any test tank. This represents SpaceX's next evolution in rocket technology, featuring a redesigned lower thrust structure and liquid oxygen header tank. But why would SpaceX be testing new components when Flight 9 is imminent? Because Elon Musk isn't just building a rocket, he's building a transportation system that will eventually take humans to Mars. While Test Tank 17 made its journey to the Massey outpost, crews were already working on multiple fronts. Another pump was added to the methane side of the tank farm expansion. Why so many pumps? Because loading Starship's massive propellant tanks requires a flow rate that would empty your backyard swimming pool in seconds. The Star Factory, once the birthplace of early Starship prototypes, was undergoing its final demolition. Workers removed the last glass elements before pulling down the final wedge of the structure. When the roof section collapsed, it didn't represent failure, it represented evolution. SpaceX had outgrown its original facilities and needed something better. Why demolish a perfectly good building? Because Starship production has advanced beyond what the original Star Factory could handle. The new production system, centered around the megabays, can produce starships and boosters at a pace that would have seemed impossible just 2 years ago. This isn't just construction, it's the birth of an interplanetary transportation system. As the sun rose on Saturday, continuous flight auger machinery began boring additional piling holes before first light. These foundations aren't just holes in the ground. They're the anchors for SpaceX's ambitious plans to increase launch cadence. How frequently does SpaceX want to launch for Starship eventually? Musk has spoken of multiple launches per day. Seem impossible? So did landing orbital-class boosters a decade ago. Saturday morning brought another milestone. Ship 35 emerged from Mega Bay 2, passing through the Sanchez site and onto Highway 4. This wasn't just a routine transfer. This was a spacecraft designed to eventually reach Mars, making its way down a public highway. Can you imagine seeing an interplanetary spacecraft casually driving down a highway? At the tank farm, 2 more pump motors were installed on the fuel side of the new pumping station. Why the obsession with pumps? Because loading Starship's massive propellant tanks quickly enough for operational cadence requires flow rates that would fill an Olympic swimming pool in minutes. Sunday morning brought the first attempt at firing Ship 35's engines. The tank farm spooled up, propellant began flowing, but then nothing. The static fire was aborted before ignition. What went wrong? SpaceX doesn't share all their data, but what we do know is that rocket engines are among the most complex machines humans have ever built, with thousands of potential failure points. Just one sensor reading outside of acceptable parameters can trigger an abort. But SpaceX doesn't quit. As Ship 35 was being detanked for another attempt, something even more dramatic was happening at Pad B. The 2 massive LR-11,000 cranes, each capable of lifting over 1,000 tons, performed what can only be described as an engineering ballet. These behemoths practiced the tandem lift needed to install the heavy steel launch mount above the flame trench. Do you know how difficult it is to coordinate 2 cranes lifting a single massive object? It's like trying to have 2 people pick up a pencil using only strings attached to their fingers. The slightest miscalculation could result in catastrophic failure. After the rehearsal, the launch mount was positioned between the flame trench and the cranes. The Liebherr cranes lowered their lifting jigs into the center of the structure, attaching to the 4 pre-installed hold-down arms inside the table. Can you imagine the precision required here? These attachment points must be perfect to ensure the even distribution of the enormous weight. With Monday's golden sunrise as a backdrop, the final lift began. The 2 cranes raised the mount above the surrounding structures. Now came the truly nerve-wracking part, moving this massive structure horizontally while keeping it perfectly balanced. Inch by inch, the cranes moved the launch mount toward its final position. Why is this launch mount so important? Because it's the foundation upon which Starship stands. It must withstand the fury of 33 Raptor engines generating over 16 million pounds of thrust, enough power to lift the equivalent of 4 fully loaded Boeing 747s straight up into the sky. As the mount was gently lowered onto the 4 load-bearing columns, engineers held their breath. The entire structure must be perfectly level and aligned. A deviation of even a few millimeters could spell disaster during launch. Is there any other industry where such precision is required for objects of this scale? While the launch mount installation captivated viewers, Ship 35 was preparing for its second static fire attempt. The tank farm spooled up again, flap actuators were tested, and this time, success. All 6 Raptor engines roared to life simultaneously. 3 vacuum-optimized Raptors and 3 sea-level Raptors. The flame trench erupted with a blinding inferno as the engines throttled up to full power. About 30 seconds into the test, viewers noticed something remarkable. The inner engines were moving. This wasn't a malfunction, it was the gimbal system being tested. Why is the gimbal system so critical? Because it's how Starship steers during flight. By pivoting individual engines, SpaceX can control the vehicle's trajectory with remarkable precision. Without this capability, landing Starships on Mars would be impossible. The test lasted a full 60 seconds, a lifetime in rocket engine testing. The vacuum Raptors shut down first, followed by the sea-level engines. All systems performed nominally. This wasn't just a successful test, it was validation that Ship 35 is ready for flight. With Ship 35's testing complete, attention turned to Booster 14. Workers at the build site quickly prepared the massive first stage for rollout, bringing the booster transport stand to Mega Bay 1. When the bay doors opened and Booster 14 emerged, it was a sight to behold. A 230-foot-tall stainless steel giant about to make its journey to the launch site. Can you appreciate the scale we're talking about? Imagine a 20-story building moving down a highway. That's Booster 14. Towering over traffic, this marvel of engineering made its way down to the launch complex, carefully maneuvering through the entrance before being positioned next to Pad A's launch and integration tower. Why is Booster 14 so significant? Because it incorporates lessons learned from previous flights. Each Starship mission provides invaluable data that SpaceX engineers use to refine their designs. How many iterations did it take SpaceX to successfully land a Falcon 9 booster? Numerous failures preceded the breakthrough, and we're watching the same iterative process with Starship. Tuesday morning saw Ship 35 departing Massey's, heading back to the build site via the Sanchez Gate. Meanwhile, Booster 14 was lifted onto the launch mount, a clear signal that Flight 9 preparations are underway in earnest. Could we see a launch in just 2 weeks? All signs point to SpaceX moving at their characteristic breakneck pace. As Ship 35 returned to Mega Bay 2, new equipment arrived at the launch site, a vaporizer likely destined for the fuel side of the new pumping station. Why are these seemingly minor details important? Because every component plays a critical role in the complex symphony that is a rocket launch. Over at Pad B, the tower chopsticks, the mechanical arms designed to catch returning boosters, were tested, opening and closing multiple times. This technology represents perhaps the most ambitious aspect of SpaceX's reusability goals. Can you imagine catching a 230-foot-tall rocket booster falling from the sky? It sounds like science fiction, but SpaceX is making it reality. Wednesday morning saw the final sliver of the Star Factory building cut loose and pulled down. With structural demolition complete, workers began breaking up the concrete in front of the old gate entrance. This isn't destruction, it's clearing the way for something better. A large ventilation line for the methane subcoolers was moved into place at the tank farm pumping station, and one of the vertical vaporizers, previously damaged in Flight 8, was reinstalled. These components might seem mundane, but they're essential for loading the cryogenic propellants that power Starship. Late-night tests were performed on the new tank farm equipment as the build-out continues. Meanwhile, Starship 38's liquid oxygen tank section was moved out of Star Factory, stopping briefly outside Mega Bay 2 before being brought in for stacking. A booster barrel section was also rolled out and sent to Mega Bay 1. What does this tell us? SpaceX isn't just preparing for Flight 9, they're already building the vehicles for Flights 10, 11, and beyond. While Starbase dominates headlines, crucial developments were unfolding at Cape Canaveral. 2 large storage tanks arrived by barge from Deer River, carefully unloaded at the turning basin before making their way to Launch Complex 39A. These aren't just any tanks. They're part of SpaceX's infrastructure for Starship operations from the historic Apollo and Shuttle launch pad. Why is establishing Starship capability at the Cape so important? Because while Starbase is perfect for testing, the Cape offers access to different orbital inclinations and established infrastructure. SpaceX isn't putting all its eggs in one basket. They're building redundancy into their launch capabilities. Even as Starship development accelerates, SpaceX's Falcon 9 continues to demonstrate the reliability that's revolutionized the launch industry. 3 Starlink missions lifted off this week alone. Starlink Group 6-91 launched from Space Launch Complex 40 on Saturday, marking Booster 1083's 11th flight. The drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas, successfully recovered the booster, while fairing halves 168 and 185 were also recovered. Did you catch that detail? One of these fairing halves has now flown 30 missions. This level of reusability was unimaginable just a few years ago. The pace continued with Starlink Group 6-67 launching on Wednesday morning, with Booster 1090 making its 4th flight into space. But perhaps the most impressive achievement came with Starlink Group 683, which lifted off from Launch Complex 39A just after midnight. Falcon 9 Booster 1067 carried another 28 Starlink satellites into space on its record-setting 28th flight. Think about that for a moment. A single rocket booster has now flown to space and back 28 times. When SpaceX first proposed reusing boosters, skeptics called it impossible. Now it's routine. What does this tell us about Starship's future? If SpaceX can master reusability with Falcon 9, imagine what they'll achieve with a system designed from the ground up for rapid reuse. With Booster 14 on the launch mount and Ship 35 back at the build site after successful testing, all signs point to Flight 9 preparations entering their final phase. The installation of the Pad B launch mount represents a crucial step towards SpaceX's goal of increasing launch cadence. Soon they'll have 2 operational orbital launch sites at Starbase. The question now isn't if Flight 9 will happen, it's when and what ambitious objectives SpaceX will target. Will they attempt a controlled splashdown of the booster? Will Ship 35 reach a higher orbit? Or does Elon Musk have something even more spectacular planned? One thing is certain, the pace of innovation at SpaceX continues to accelerate. Each test, each launch, each seemingly minor component installation brings humanity one step closer to becoming a multiplanetary species. Are we witnessing the early stages of the most significant transformation in human history? Only time will tell, but SpaceX is making believers out of skeptics with each passing day. And there you have it. SpaceX's relentless march toward making humanity multiplanetary continues to accelerate. From the precision engineering of the launch mount installation, to Ship 35's successful static fire, to Booster 14 standing ready on the pad, we're witnessing history in the making. What fascinates me most isn't just the technology, but what it represents. Each Starship launch brings us closer to a future where humans walk on Mars. Will Flight 9 be the breakthrough mission that changes everything? Will you be watching when it happens? If you found this deep dive valuable, hit that subscribe button to join our Space Corps community. We'll bring you the detailed analysis of Flight 9 the moment it launches. And let me know in the comments, What milestone are you most excited to see SpaceX achieve next? A successful catch of a returning booster? The first Starship landing on the moon? Or something even more ambitious? The space revolution is happening right now, and we're all privileged to witness it together.